The fight was over before anyone threw a punch. Around 500 BC in ancient China, a military strategist named Sun Tzu wrote something that confused every general who read it. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Commanders thought he was talking about diplomacy or surrender. He wasn't. He was saying that if you actually have to fight, you've already lost something valuable. The real victory happens long before the battle begins. Most people still don't understand what he meant. During the Warring States period, China was chaos. Kingdoms fought constantly for territory and power. Generals competed to prove their military genius. Battles were spectacles. Victory meant crushing your enemy on the battlefield with superior tactics and bravery. The best generals were the ones who won the most dramatic fights. Sun Tzu watched all of this and saw something nobody else did. All these glorious victories were actually failures, because the battle should never have happened in the first place. Today, you don't fight with armies. You fight with deadlines, presentations, difficult conversations, career moves, and you show up unprepared. You wait until the last minute. You wing it. You think you'll figure it out when you get there. Then you wonder why everything feels like an uphill battle. Sun Tzu would say you lost before you started. So what did he see that we keep ignoring? Sun Tzu tells this story about a general who was offered command of an army. Before accepting, he spent months studying everything. The terrain where battles might happen, the weather patterns, the enemy commanders and their decision-making styles, the supply routes, the morale of both armies, the political situation. He gathered intelligence. He positioned resources. He made alliances. He created conditions. By the time he accepted command, he had already won. Not because he was a better fighter, because he had made it almost impossible to lose. When the actual battles came, they were boring, quick, decisive. The enemy would realize they were outmaneuvered before the fighting even started. They'd retreat or surrender. Historians barely recorded these victories because they weren't dramatic enough. But Sun Tzu said those were the only victories that mattered, because they preserved resources, saved lives, maintained momentum. Fighting is expensive. Even when you win. This is what people miss. They think preparation is about having a plan. Sun Tzu is talking about something deeper. He's talking about creating conditions where success becomes inevitable, where the outcome is decided before anyone makes a move. He says it clearly: know your enemy and know yourself, and you need not fear the result of 100 battles. But most people don't know either. They don't study the situation. They don't understand their own strengths and weaknesses. They don't gather intelligence. They just show up and hope for the best. Watch what happens when you do that. You walk into a negotiation without understanding what the other person actually wants. You're already losing. You start a business without researching the market. You're already behind. You have a difficult conversation without thinking through what you actually need to say. You're already fumbling. Sun Tzu would say, all of those are battles you lost before they began. Not because you're not capable, because you didn't do the work beforehand. Here's what most people don't realize about Sun Tzu. He's not teaching you how to fight better. He's teaching you how to avoid fighting altogether. Every battle is a failure of preparation. If you had positioned yourself correctly, gathered better intelligence, created better conditions, the battle wouldn't be necessary. The other side would already know they can't win. Think about the battles you're fighting right now. That difficult project at work. That struggling relationship. That goal you keep chasing but never reaching. You're treating them like battles you need to win through effort and willpower. Sun Tzu would ask, what did you do before the battle started? What groundwork did you lay? What conditions did you create? probably nothing. You just showed up and started fighting. This is why everything feels so hard. You're trying to win battles that were already lost because you didn't prepare the ground. You didn't study the terrain. You didn't understand the forces at play. You didn't position yourself for inevitable victory. You just charged in and hoped your effort would be enough. It won't be, not against someone who did the preparation. Sun Tzu has this concept called shi. It translates roughly to strategic advantage or momentum. It's like rolling a boulder down a hill. If you position it correctly at the top, gravity does the work. The boulder rolls inevitably to where you want it. You're not forcing it. You're working with natural forces. But if you try to push that same boulder up the hill from the bottom, you'll exhaust yourself and probably fail. Most people are pushing boulders uphill. They're fighting against natural forces instead of positioning themselves to work with them. Then they wonder why success feels impossible. You want a promotion. You could work harder. Put in more hours. Try to prove yourself. That's pushing the boulder uphill. Or you could study what actually gets people promoted in your company. Build relationships with decision makers before you need them. Position yourself on visible projects. Create conditions where promoting you is the obvious choice. That's positioning the boulder at the top of the hill. Same goal, completely different approach. One is a battle. The other is inevitable. Or relationships. You want someone to change their behavior. You could argue with them, criticize them. Or you could understand why they behave that way in the first place. What needs aren't being met. What fears are driving them. Then create conditions where changing becomes the easier path for them. That's preparation. That's positioning. But he also says the best victories are the ones where the enemy surrenders before fighting. Because they see they've already lost. You created conditions so favorable to yourself and so unfavorable to them that fighting would be pointless. This applies to everything. That presentation you're nervous about. The battle isn't the presentation. The battle was already decided by whether you prepared. If you studied your audience, understood their concerns, anticipated their questions, crafted your message to address their actual needs, the presentation itself is just a formality. If you're winging it, you already lost. That business you want to start. The battle isn't the launch. It's everything that happened before. Did you validate the market? Talk to potential customers? Build an audience? Create demand before creating supply? Or are you just hoping if you build it, they'll come? That difficult conversation you've been avoiding. The battle isn't the words you say. It's whether you understood what you actually need, what the other person actually needs, and how to frame it so both sides can win. Without that preparation, you're just going to argue and make things worse. Most people treat preparation as optional, something you do if you have time. Sun Tzu would say, preparation is everything. The battle itself is just the reveal of who prepared better. And if you prepared correctly, there shouldn't be much of a battle at all. The outcome should be obvious. This doesn't mean you avoid challenges. It means you don't take on challenges until you've stacked the deck in your favor. You don't fight fair, you fight smart. You create advantages before you need them. You position resources before the battle. You gather intelligence before making moves. You make victory inevitable through positioning, not through effort. Right now, think about what you're trying to accomplish. Stop focusing on the battle itself. Start asking, what preparation am I missing? What intelligence do I need? What conditions do I need to create? What advantages do I need to build before I make my move? That's where the real work happens. Not in the moment of execution. In the weeks and months before. The general who wins before the battle is fought isn't lucky. They're just the only one who took preparation seriously. You keep fighting battles that were already lost. Not because you're not capable, because you showed up unprepared and expected effort to compensate for lack of strategy. It won't. It never does. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. The supreme art of life is to win before the battle begins. Stop fighting. Start positioning. Subscribe if this shifted something.